IFSB6.
Really, nigga?
It's already mine. Tak tahu ke? Tak tahu ke? Senang je tu kan?
Dari matamu, matamu kulai jatuh cintaku.
Why you look so stressed?
It's about one test. IFSB6 again.
Oh, it's easy only. I got a video. Come, let me show you. Hey, come, let me teach you. I know how to do. Come, come.
Hi, you don't know about ICIS? Hard to understand ICIS? Here is the good video that you able to understand the simplest way about ICIS. Okay, IFSB has developed the second tier of corporate governance which focus on CIS, which is collective investment scheme under one roof, which is ICIS, Islamic collective investment scheme. IFSB has a definition of ICIS. There are three elements. First, investor must contribute their capital into a fund. Second, the fund must be managed and follow the Sharia principle. And the third one is either the fund is managed by ICIS or sponsor it. It must have a separate financial accountability. Okay, how we want to know about ICIS? There are various forms. First are like closed-end funds, open-end funds, or individual funds. And then there are a few elements that do not fall under ICIS. First, like pension fund. Pension fund does not follow the definition of ICIS. And the second one, like investment that does not contribute into share or a unit. Okay, the objective of ICIS to ensure the market is fair, efficiency and transparency by eliminate a few things like gambling, interest that prohibited in the Sharia principle, and also to protect investor.
Hi, Mia. What you doing here?
I explained about ICIS. Now it's your turn to talk about the scope.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I will explain about the scope of ICIS governance. Look there. Hi, let me explain about the scope of ICIS governance. ICIS governance has 5 scopes. First of all, it seeks to ensure that it works with efficiency and exclusively. Besides that, it also has involved in legal environment. Third scope is it has the strict compliance, which is Sharia rules, which is including Ummah and Maqasid. It also introduced 2 models, which is compliance and contractual. Lastly, it works to avoid the conflict of interest. ICIS governance also has 4 guiding principles. First of all, to approach the general governance. Second one is to follow the rules and regulations. The third one is to improve the environment for investors. Lastly, to highlight the issue for the investors. Hi guys.
Hi.
What you have? Hello.
Hi, Rema. What is you doing here?
Oh, I was explaining the scope of ICIS governance. Can you help me to explain about the principles, the first principle of ICIS governance?
Yeah, of course. Let's see together.
Let me join you.
No way.
Let's go.
Okay, for the first principle, ICIS LGD shall responsible for ensuring the appropriate governance of structure and procedures, and also protect the independence and integrity by they have 2 ways, which is the first one, continuous adoption of the international international best practice, and the second ways is steering establishment of governance policy framework. Okay, for the recommended best practice, the first one is ICIS-GB shall establish the appropriate code of ethics, and responsibility should be included in the code of ethics. And the second is ensure that they implement and maintain the system and control to monitor the party carrying out. This include a progressive review of the carrying out of the relevant activities. Next, GB shall protect any of the ICIS insiders who wish to report an incident of the malpractice, which adopt as a matter of policy that whistleblowers be permitted to report. And the last one, it would be helpful if GB establish and facilitate educate a channel for stakeholders. Amen.
Sorry I'm so late.
Dah, aku dah lambat dah.
What should I do?
Part 2.
Alright, the part 2 is about transparency and disclosure. It is principle number 2. Alright, so for the structure and process of having a good governance, the financial reporting is very important because it's a public interest activity. So if the information is unreliable, the ICIS investor will not making an investment. So the ICIS investor cannot intervene with the management of investment. So this is where the insider help them by present the information. This way the investors can monitor the performance of ICIS and protect the investment. So this is where the insiders is very important in recognize their responsibility to investors and market. So the last one is method of disclosure can be divided into 3. So for the recommend of best practice, first is emphasis on relevant and reliable information that is matter to ICIS, and the second one is ensure that the information is readily available, which means it's comparable, readable, understandable, so that it's easy accessible by investors and consumers. And the last one is the insiders to ensure that information is well monitored and updated. Alright, for the last one is the ICIS insider should be careful with the potential risk when they are disclosing the information, because there will be where there is a fraudulent statement or misstatement. So they must be disclose the information only to those who have the legitimate interest in receiving it only.
You lagi prefer sayang ke baby?
Baby sayang.
Ush.
Sorry. Anwar, can you help me explain the chapter 3?
The third part of this principle is the compliance with the Sharia law and principles. In this purpose is to ensure that the appropriate system are kept in place and effective. The progress and structure of this principle is the monitoring Sharia rules and principles. The next one is Bahiyah, which is the prosecution, and then the next one is the portfolio screening. So the third part of this principle is the ex ante, which means that it is a type of structure that can be used to contribute to the Sharia compliance and also in this transaction. The next part is the ex post, which means that it is a type of structure that can be used to contribute in the Sharia of level, in the internal auditor, and also the parts of the ICIS. So the best way to recommend in this practice is the adopt the Islamic indexes and also to the role of the management and the ICIS.
What is it?
Can you explain the part 4?
Okay then. So I will explain about part 4, which is additional protection for ICIS investor. So for the structure and procedure, we need to clarify 3 things. So for the first one is commingling. ICIS sponsor or manager makes funds or assets that it holds in the care of ICIS investor with its own funds or assets. So this make difficult to determine which belongs to investor, which belongs to the managers. So for the second things is switching. Movement of the ICIS assets or funds from one specific pool to another pool under the management of the ICIS same sponsor or manager. So the last things that need to be clarified is redeeming and reinvesting. Redemption of ICIS unit by the ICIS investor at a certain price, and reinvestment of the eligible funds into different ICIS managed by the same ICIS sponsor or manager. For the best recommended practice, ICIS need to ensure that any transaction regarding to the funds and assets must be carried out on arm's length basis, need to be reported to ICISGB and SSB, and must have approval from them. For the second point is ICIS satisfied with itself that competent valuer is assigned to evaluate ICIS asset and also as well as to calculate the net asset value. So for the last recommendation is ICISGB assure that valuation system will produce accurate results. So that's all for part 4. All those 4 parts have been done by them, so I hope the knowledge will be useful by all of you. Hafiz, wait, Hafiz! From what we have analyzed about IFSB6, we can conclude that the ICIS are not to insulate investors from suffering any market value loss, but rather to enable them to understand the risk pertaining to investment in specific ICIS. That ICIS has strict compliance with the Sharia rules and includes the purification of tainted income, portfolio screening, while it's monitored with Sharia rules and principles. As the effect of ICIS, the investor had improved their knowledge about environments. So, besides that, the conflict of interest among the investors has decreased. And lastly, ICIS reduced the involvement of investors in any misleading, manipulative, and fraudulent activities. So that's all from us. Thank you, and yeah, Avengers assemble.
Okay, that's all from us. Thank you. Avengers assemble!